Welcome to the Thoroughly Wrong Project with Lalo and Bob. We appreciate you spending some time with us today. Let's jump right into that weekly dose of things you can disagree with. Take it away, guys.
That looks like we're on the air. All right. Good morning and welcome to the Thoroughly Wrong Project. We've been out 2 weeks because we've been out 2 weeks. What'd you do last week, man?
I was out of town. I went to Big Bear. Me and like a group of my friends, we like rented out a cabin and we were just there for like the holiday weekend, you know.
Yeah, you were praying and asking the Holy Spirit to bless you and all that, right?
Something like that.
Or you were drinking, I bet. Bad.
No, it was fun. It's like a cool. Have you ever been up there?
Yeah, I've been up there a couple times. I've snowboarded up there.
Yeah, I want to go during like snow season
Yeah.
because it wasn't. I mean, it was like very fresh over there when we went. There was like it wasn't freezing, but it wasn't like super warm, you know.
Yeah.
So
It's
it was
always
like
nice up there.
yeah, so it was like super fresh. We went like kayaking and stuff like that. But I
Yeah,
definitely want to go during the snow.
my kid's mom has lived up there. Her dad owned a laundromat up there in the 80s, I think. 80s
Oh
and the
really?
90s. Yeah.
Yeah, the town's
So,
pretty. It's like it's more. I don't know. I guess it's bigger than I expected it to be. I thought it was like just some like little like town.
mhm.
Like super small because I mean it's not like a big city or anything, but it's definitely bigger than I thought it would be. And then they're like I don't know what you would call it, like their downtown area where like all the shops and like you know where people just walk around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Uh, that area was kind of it was cool, but at the same time it felt like all the stores were just like gift shops of Big Bear. So like I felt like all the stores they were just like, oh here's souvenirs. Like I thought there would be like actual like small like local like specialized stores, you know, not just a bunch of like generic gift shops.
Oh, yeah. Like you're talking about like the gift shops in Colorado ski towns where they have real stores, not just uh, souvenir gift shops.
Yeah, it's like
I haven't
all
been up to Big Bear in like 20 years, so I
it's
should
all
go.
like bear keychains and sweaters.
Do you have a bear keychain?
I did not get a bear keychain.
Did you get a bear sweater?
No.
Lalo, come on, man. How the fuck are they going to stay in Big Bear if you don't buy their Big Bear shit? Come on.
I don't know, I just felt like it was I don't know, it's very played out. But like we went to like this pokey place over there and that was pretty good. But yeah, it was fun overall. It was really
Well,
cool.
America is struggling, man. I mean, everywhere's struggling right now. So I guess whatever your niche is, if it's a Big Bear keychain, you better sell as many as you can at this point, you know?
In what way do you think it's struggling, or what do you mean by that?
All the way across the board. I mean, I don't know if so much is capitalism is struggling as much as the people that have to support it because there I watched the news over the holiday weekend, and it's like everybody's talking about the gas prices and the fuel prices and for planes and hotel prices, and everything's at this point where only uh, only a certain amount of people can afford it, and now everyone is starting to stay home. So it's a struggle to stay. If you're Big Bear and people can't afford to come up to see you, what the hell are you going to do? You know, you can't sell key. I guess you can sell keychains online, but that's not the same thing.
Yeah, I get that. But I also see like there's like like I agree with you that you know a lot of people are struggling, but right now I don't think it's to the point where people see like a very big impact on like things like that, you know. Like you just mentioned Big Bear, like a vacation spot or vacation town, you know?
Yeah.
Because I mean, people that go on vacation usually can afford to go on vacation, you know?
Yeah,
And
that's true.
chances are that if you can afford to go on vacation 3 years ago, most of those same people can still afford to go on vacation, you know? Um, it's those people that were like on the fringe, like on the fence, you know,
Yeah.
of like not poverty, but like, um, living like semi decent and like, living paycheck to paycheck. I think those people are the ones that really felt the most difference, in their lifestyle, I guess.
Yeah.
And then obviously the people that, are in poverty or are living paycheck to paycheck, they got stretched out even more thin.
Yeah, they're hurting. They're starting to hurt.
Yeah, so those people like they didn't go on vacations to begin with. So like their ability that's to go on vacation is even less now, but I don't think it's felt yet because they weren't doing it in the first place. If that makes sense.
Yeah, but what about the people who can't afford it? They're not spending as much money in the gift shops and things as they are dumping it into the fuel costs and the hotels and the food, and so they're it is tipping. I mean, I I hate to say, my wife and I were saving money over the last few years, and especially during the pandemic, we were socking it away, and then we're living the same lifestyle, Lalo, but we're not saving the money now. We do, you know what I mean?
Is
Like
it
all the
like out
money.
of necessity or is it
Yeah, it's an
out of choice?
well, the thing we said, the thing we talked about in the hallway the other day, about the hot tub, and I owe you for that one because I do owe you, man. That's no joke here. I was fucking like, I don't want to do take care of this fucking hot tub. It's because it's drain it and clean it and fill it back up, and then the chemicals, and you got to run to the store 10 times to get the water tested and all that shit. And I and you said, oh, you got to do it. And I was like, yeah, that's true. I was thinking I have to do it. And then I thought, well, yeah, I got to clean my hot tub this weekend. And it did change the way I think. But to stay at the level that we were at, all the money that we were putting towards our savings is now going into the lifestyle that we are accustomed to living. So the change for us wasn't we went downhill or backwards. We just kind of stagnated right where we are. We're going to continue to live this life and not put money in the bank, which is a dangerous way to look at things. But, I like being comfortable.
No, yeah, I get it. Like a lot of people have had to like what you just explained, kind of they want to maintain like their lifestyle. So even if they kind of have to like reappropriate the way they spend their money
Yeah,
just to maintain the lifestyle based on their priorities.
right.
So like if they want to keep like the newest, like, oh, I get the newest like iPhone every year or whatever.
Right.
Like people are still like that might be a priority for them, so they do that and then maybe spend less on like, you know, their savings fund or like their kids' college fund or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's the way we adjusted, we shifted instead of, paying our debt down. Our debt has now become like status quo. It's stopped. We stopped paying it. It's not going up. It's not going down because I pay a little bit more. So the interest rates on my credit cards don't stack up on me. We don't put
Yeah.
anything in savings. So that way we can continue to run the hot tub and continue to run the vehicles and continue to go to the movies and continue to go out to dinner and all the things that we do. But like I said, it's a dangerous place to be because if something would happen and I don't have any savings or I'm not cutting into what I have, but it's not a lot. And that becomes a problem when you wreck a vehicle or, do something happens to you.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't like if you tell that to a lot of people or like explain that kind of behavior, a lot of people might say like, oh, you're just being irresponsible or something. But
Yeah.
I also think like a lot of people that might, do similar things like that, like part of them does it just because they don't want to feel like, oh, I have to like change my lifestyle because of, inflation or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Because once that happens, you kind of, it's almost like it sets in. And people don't want, like we've said before, like people are afraid of change. So like having to go from like, hey, I go on 3 vacations every year to like, hey, we can only go to one now.
Yeah.
Um, like that might do something for people like psychologically. Like they might feel like they're like worthless or like that they're doing something wrong or that they're failing at something.
Yeah. I'm failing
They like,
here.
can't provide for their family or whatever. So I think there's like multiple facets to this uh like issue, and this like thing that seems to be going around.
Yeah. Yeah. We all adjusted. I think, I don't know. It wasn't like a thought out thing. I didn't sit down with Laura and say, hey, we need to stop saving money so we can
Yeah, I think
keep
it
the
happens
hot
very
tub.
like consciously and just
It just happened, and we sat down and talked about it. It's like our savings isn't growing, but we're not hurting. So, it's like we went in the locker room at halftime and said, look, man, we're not losing real bad yet. Let's just continue to maintain here. So we're coming out at halftime, not trying to win the game, just trying to stay in the fucking game. That's it.
yeah. And I mean, I get it. Like, I'm sure, I think most people kind of would do the same thing just because, like I said, they don't want to like face the music, I guess. But like I said, it also, I think it happens a lot, like subconsciously. Like, you don't do it, you don't think about it. It kind of just happens. And then when you stop to think about it, that's when you like realize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's okay. It'll flip. It will flip back. I hope. I mean, I don't see gas prices going back down below $4 ever again, but we'll
I
make
think
that
they will.
adjustment.
To, to be honest, I have like this cynical idea that after midterms and after like Republicans take back like the Senate and shit, they're gonna go down just because that's what like the gas companies do, like the oil
Yeah.
companies. They'll lower them during like Republican, like they'll lower them strategically to make it seem like it was because of Republicans, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
Republicans taking back the Senate will literally do nothing for oil prices, but they'll still go down. And then people will just like correlate that with like, oh, see, Republicans lower gas prices
Yeah.
because people are so like gullible.
Are we gullible?
I would say most people in the United States are very gullible
I see it too.
to the point where they could just like they maybe not gullible, but just like they're like their line of thinking and their logic is very like not wrong, but just like skewed. Like they kind of like they connect things that don't connect at all, and they correlate things that shouldn't correlate at all,
Yeah. Yeah. I
and
agree
they
with that.
form ideas and opinions out of those things.
Yeah.
And politicians and corporations know all this, so they kind of like they manipulate people. It's like people talking about any issue, and they try to connect it to something that's completely unrelated.
Hmm.
Like I always see like news articles about it could be about like the government spending money on anything, like let me see, like on a new like program to help like undocumented people like with job training or something. And then you'll see a comment of like, and yet we have homeless veterans, blah blah blah, on the streets,
Right.
and it's like, what? Like, how'd you get from A to B? You know?
I think the I think the issue is that people can't see patterns, you know?
Yeah,
And even when you have those puzzle books and it's like the repeating numbers 1, 3, 5, and then you got to pick out the rest of the numbers, people can't do that. And if you can't do it at that level, you certainly can't see it over a period of, oil companies strangling the American population over a period of 2 years of how they and how politics ebbs and flows and the gas prices ebb and flow with it, and lots of things are connected to politics that just move with politics, and we can't see it. And I don't know why we can't see it, because it's like it's been happening since the gas thing's been happening at least since 1976, when we had the big gas shortage, when there was no fucking shortage. It was just anybody, even a child, could see what was happening, but most people were just like, oh, those fucking Arabs, and it's like, what the hell are you talking about, fucking Arabs? It's Exxon. It's not the Middle East. It's fucking Exxon. And they just can't see it.
yeah. People are just, and I mean, I don't mean to say like in a condescending way, like, oh, like we're better than you, but I think just the way people like come to conclusions and the way they connect things.
Hmm.
And like you said, I think a lot of it has to do with like critical thinking, like skills or lack of,
Right.
just like basic kind of things like that that could really, that you don't really think about should be like important. But when it comes to like real life and like applying that to like your personal life, it could do a lot of, like it could make a big change, and a big difference if you kind of just don't take things for face value and kind of just stop and actually think about what's going on and what causes what.
Yeah.
I think that's where people would really start to see a change in their way of thinking. Because I think even once you do it like one time, you will kind of like start to do it on other occasions just because you have that experience.
Yeah.
So
I see. This leads me into this thing that's happening in Georgia with Trump and Herschel Walker and Marjorie Taylor Greene. There are so many fucking non sequiturs, dude, and so much is being said. So there's shit coming out of Herschel Walker's mouth that makes absolutely no sense. And I think that, yeah, I know half of us are laughing and the other half are just listening to it and going, yeah, that's the way it should be. And I think that it seems really odd that the only thing that Herschel Walker and Trump, their followers, have in common, it just seems like those people look at them and say, well, I know what he meant. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah, I know what he meant. When Herschel Walker says, well, we need to be looking at the young men who's looking at the young women who's looking at social media. That doesn't make any fucking sense, but people are like, yeah, that's what we need to do. And when you press the issue, it's like, well, what do we need to do? Well, we need to be looking at the young men who's looking at the young girls who's looking at social media. For what? He was talking about guns. He was talking about gun violence, and suddenly we're looking at young men, looking at young women, looking at social media. How the fuck does that's a non sequitur, man. It doesn't follow.
yeah. Uh, It's like this strategy that, and I mean, I think politicians do it on both sides, but especially Republicans, like they say such like generic statements
Yeah.
and like nonsensical that people just hear them and it's like, yeah, that sounds smart. They
Sounds
don't even
smart.
think about it.
I guess, yeah. When you're talking about the January 6th inquiries and all the shit that's being said about that, and none of it seems to make any sense. And yet, it's like they're stalling so they can get in power, so they can end it.
Yeah.
That's all they want. That's all McCarthy wants, is to stall long enough to put Liz Cheney down, and they're hoping that she doesn't get reelected. It doesn't seem like they want anything to do with justice or truth or the American for the good of the American people. They just want power. They just want to stay at status quo and continue to suck the money out of us as hard as they can.
Yeah, and I mean, I think with this whole like I mean, it kind of seemed like a barrage, like this barrage of like shootings that we had recently.
Yeah, like 5 and 7 days, or 3 and 7 days.
That's kind of like what you just said of them just kind of stalling and waiting to like do nothing. They kind of showed how they play that game,
Yeah,
with like the whole gun control issue. They kind of just avoid the question, and literally will bring up anything but gun control. Like they're blaming fucking doors.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like people, like, they'll run with that. Like they hear that, and then like they start like regurgitating those talking points like on social media. It's like, yeah, we just need to have armed security guards at every school. And it's like, what are you saying? Or like arm the teachers. Like that's one that I hear a lot. Like none of this would happen if we just armed the teachers. And it's like most teachers in America are like middle-aged white ladies. You want them to like, you want to arm them and like make them stop a shooter? And it's like, oh, well, we could train the teachers and we could teach them like how to shoot. And it's like, that's what gun control is. Like, that's what we're asking for, like pass a background check, pass like a gun safety course. But when people on the left say it's too radical, and people don't even stop to think, like they just hear like gun control and they think like, oh, guns are being taken away.
Right.
But like, that's not how it works. And like the numbers for gun control, like they're there. Like it's very obvious of how it works, And like literally you can think of any like right wing like talking point against gun control. And one, it's either like super outdated and not an actual statistic anymore. Or two, is just simply like not true, Like people love to bring up Chicago, and it's like Chicago isn't even in like the top 20 like deadliest cities in the United States.
Is it not?
It's not.
See, even dude, I try to stay informed. I read as much as I can. I listen to the news. I read constantly. I didn't even know that. I thought it was.
It's not. Like all the a majority of the illegal guns in Chicago and Illinois come from states around Illinois. Like they're not from Illinois. You know how they say like, oh, like Chicago has one of the strictest gun laws in the country.
Yeah.
And they still have all this crime and whatever. Yeah, but that's because people are bringing guns from other places. And why do you think they're bringing guns from other places? Because they can't get them in Chicago. Because it works, The gun control actually works. But they see that there's no gun control in other places. So it's like, hey, I'm gonna go get it over here.
Well, let me put you on the spot. Let me put you on the spot. Let me ask this. California has some of the strictest gun policies in the United States, and not some of the strictest gun policies in the United States. And yet we have the most mass shootings over the last 20 years. How do you explain that?
But is that per capita or is that in general? Because we also have 40 million people.
Right.
Per capita, the states with the highest, I think like the top 10 or 15 states with the highest gun violence are all red. Like, yikes. That's a fact. Like, you could look that up. Obviously, when you have 40 million people, you're going to have
More
Like
incidents.
like the raw number, yeah, it's going to be more incidents. But per capita, which is how you measure things in a country that has population so diverse,
Right.
um, not diverse, but like populations that are very, different, the sizes. Um, you measure things per capita. And you look at Texas, Texas is very high on the list. Even I think like Alaska is like number one. Um, but like the top 10 are all red. Like every single state is red. Maybe like New Mexico's in there. That might be like the closest blue state. But other than that, like it just shows how like obvious the issue is and how obvious the solution is. People just don't want to do it because it like because when if Republicans were to pass like any sort of gun control, they'd be seen as like traitors.
Yeah.
And
Well, the
once you do
NRA.
that, you lose the votes, and then once you lose the votes, you're out of office, and they'll just replace you with somebody that will just say no to whatever you're proposing.
I find it strange that Kevin McCarthy's in the top 10 people taking money from the NRA in a state that has the strictest gun laws. It doesn't make much sense, but in another way it does because he has power at a national level. He's going to be the Speaker of the House, maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's like I think number three like Republican when it comes to
Yeah,
like ranking and power.
yeah,
So I mean, I'm not surprised. Um, he's like a slime ball. So
I agree. I don't
and
know,
it's
man.
so weird. It's so like I don't know. You wouldn't think that like a top ranking Republican would come out of California, but at the same time, Kern County is very red.
Yeah, I like it here. This is fine. This is fine. We're doing fine. I don't know. I, I don't see any. I don't see any hope. I sat down and talked to a coworker the other day after Friday. Went over to his house after work, and we sat down and we talked about what's happening, and as in the future, I have two teachers who want to come on. They just haven't been able to because it was the end of the school year and there's a lot graduation, all that shit going on. But they do both want to come on and discuss what's happening in the classroom, and it's it's just indicative of like what we talk about all the time with the politics and the culture and the things. We got kids who are fucking vaping marijuana in the classroom, dude, while they make eye contact with the teacher. That's what it's reached now.
um,
Yeah, damn. And I I can't I don't know what my wife says. It's like she says classrooms aren't classrooms like when I was a kid. It was silent and the teacher was in charge, and we listened, and there was the class clown. Fuck, it was me that would make the comment every now and then, but I got in trouble for it. But she said now it's just controlled chaos. It's constant. It's never quiet. The learning environment doesn't happen. So this is indicative of our culture. McCarthy's not doing anything, and it's a controlled chaos at the national level. At the state level, it's controlled chaos because they're trying to deal with the abortion rights coming down and the gun things coming down and the violence and all the things. It's just our country is we never stop. There's no time to stop and think about what we're doing. It's just this fucking chaotic mess constantly, and now it's in our classrooms. So what's happening here is I talked to Andy, our coworker. He said he has hope because the kids always seem to pull out. But dude, I don't know if I do or not. Not at this point. It seems like we need a radical change. Something has to happen.
yeah, that's like a hard thing to tackle, I think, because it's like hard to pinpoint like what has to change.
Yeah.
It's hard to kind of find the root of that issue. And people probably have like a million different ideas of like what's causing it. It's like, oh, it's because of the internet, or like because of people not raising their kids right. And I'm sure it's like a culmination of various things.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure of it.
But I there's probably one that's like bigger than the others. We kind of just have to find that one and then like address it.
Or pick a
Uh,
small one and address it. I mean, if your fucking shoe's untied and you're covered in horse shit, it's like, well, I guess I could tie my shoe. That'll help. I won't, I won't fall down covered in horse shit. At least there you go. I, I think I have a big portion of it. I mean, your teacher that wrote the book. Did you listen to the book I sent you?
uh, no.
Oh, it's
You
cool. I
sent me a
mean, I
book?
get it. You've been busy. That that book from your old high school teacher, the guy who wrote it.
Oh, yeah, I started listening. I haven't finished it. I thought you mentioned. I thought you said that you sent me a different book.
No, no. That there's a
Yeah, I
chapter in
started,
that.
but I haven't finished it.
There's a chapter in that, dude, that's like it felt like somebody stood up and punched me in the fucking face because it's so true. And he said we have a generation of kids. Actually, this is the second one. And Andy reiterated by saying this is the third one that's growing up with a phone in their face. And okay, that's fine. Technology moves along. We all move from horses to cars. We all move from telephones to computers. I get it. Things are happening, but we are raising our kids in an environment that looks like this. We tell them that the planet's on fire. We're running out of water. Politics obviously is corrupt. You'll never own a house. You can't ever get out of debt. If you want to go to college, we're going to saddle you with $100,000 out the door. Our culture looks like it's negative all the way across the board. Now we're raising a bunch of kids with no hope, no future, no way to look at anything with any uh, what word am I looking for? I don't know. There's no they look at a future that's just bleak. How do we want them to act, Lalo, when that's what we give them? And that's all we give them. There is no, if we do this, we can clean up the planet. If we do this, you know, we can't. Scientists are on television saying it's too fucking late. So you're looking at 8, 9, 10, 12 years old, and all they hear and all they see is there is no fucking hope. How do you want them to act after that? You know?
Yeah.
You and really, if you stop and really literally think about what I just said, psychologically, we're telling our kids it doesn't matter because there is no future. So they're growing up thinking, fuck it, I'm going to vape right here in class while I make eye contact with the teacher. And what the fuck are they going to do about it? And the thing is, admin is not prepared to deal with this. Our school administrations have no idea what to do with kids that are just breaking the fucking rules, and they can't punish them. They literally can't punish them. We don't want to throw them out of school because that might look racist in a community full of ethnic people. What are we doing here? And I think one of the things that we need to fucking address, which is why I want to get these two teachers on here, one of the things we need to address is what can we do to save our kids? How can we give them some fucking hope for the future? And that might change things.
Well, I mean, based on what you kind of I haven't gone to that chapter. At least I don't think so, because I feel like I would have remembered all that. But based on what you've told me, like, it's kind of our fault, like the adults.
Yeah, definitely.
The older generations. We're the ones that not only put out all this like bleak, like outlook on the world, but we created the reasons why there's such a bleak outlook in the world, you know?
Hmm.
Like we created, you know, climate issues. We created, you know, recessions and inflations and like all these things, all these bad things that are happening. Like the older generations are at fault, you know?
Yeah,
Then they
definitely.
turn around and be like, "Oh, these damn kids, like they don't care about anything, blah blah blah." And it's
Why should they?
like you made them not care about anything, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's almost like a cycle, like of because I mean I've noticed that this happens like every generation where you know the previous generation or like the previous generations like they kind of look down on them because of you know they're young and they're dumb and
Yeah.
like they do stuff, but um at the same time I think the newer generations like millennials and like Gen Z kids like they're also one of the most like productive generations that we've ever had when it comes to uh like free thinking, you know, and like breaking the status quo that got us in like these messes to begin with.
Right. I
So
agree. That's our
I
only
think
hope.
yeah, I think a lot of people in those two generations have kind of like they've seen like what happens. Like they've seen like how you're supposed to live life like hey, you're supposed to, you know, go to school or like go to college and, you know, work for 40 years and then just retire and but it's like they don't want to do that. Like that's they see the like the bad things that come from, you know, the stuff that's been going on for decades, you know.
Yeah.
So
Apathy.
they want to break away from that and create a different like way of living. And you know, that may be one of the reasons why like things like socialism is so like it's kind of like gaining traction again, you know. It's becoming more and more popular because people kind of see the way things work now and they're like this sucks, man.
Yeah.
Like it really does suck. And then, you know, I don't want to slave away for, you know, 10, 12 hours a day and barely scrape by.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't either. I get it. And that's what I said. I
and
think
that's the
that's
thing, I
where
don't
the
think,
hope is.
yeah, because I don't think like anybody wants to do that. Like no generation wanted to do that. Like if you were explained to that to them, they would say, no, I don't want that. But they weren't willing to do anything about it at a large scale, at least, you know, or at
Yeah.
least even if they tried, it kind of maybe it wasn't successful, you know.
I do like the thought processes of the 20 somethings right now, which it doesn't on the surface it looks chaotic and like they're not really plugged in, but at the same time they have a different way of thinking. They have a different way of thinking about politics and about culture and country. They have a different way of communicating with each other, and not just electronically, but philosophically, they have a different way of communicating with each other. They seem to be really intelligent, but not in the intelligence that we have measured for the last 50, 60, 100 years. There seems to be a different, like a shift here. And that's a good thing. Like when you talk about climate change, a lot of people are starting to talk about, well, what's really causing it? And it's not anything. It's not watering a lawn. It's ag. It's big ag is taking our water. So what can we do? Well, a lot of people turn to veganism, and it's starting to change the way we think about our future, and that's hopeful. And I hope that our eighth graders and our sixth, seventh, and eighth graders who have been raised on nothing but the fucking internet, man. That's all they've ever had. You go to a grocery store and there's a little baby with, a VR fucking helmet on. I saw that the other day. She was like 4 years old. She's wearing VR and holding a phone. And I'm like, okay, I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but I hope it does. And we do have hope here. It's just not the future doesn't look like my age people thought it would be. That's all. Everybody's
What
in a
was that like, or what was that like? What did you think it would be like?
well, for me, I thought I was going to, you know, I truly remember being in my 20s and I would look at the year 2000 and I would think at 35 and I want to, I want to be okay by 35. I want to be out of this mess that I'm in of being in my 20s and being in debt and spending money that I didn't need to spend. I just thought I would mature, be more like my parents who had a house and, would raise my kids and everybody would go to school. My kids would go to college and blah, blah, blah. And I would grow old and die. That's basically what I thought. It's nothing like that. It's nothing like that. I'm 57 now. I have no savings. I have no house. I have no hope of getting a house at this point. I have no hope of ever getting enough savings to get even through 5 years of fucking retirement. So things are much different than I thought they would be. I thought I would be more successful, I guess I'm saying, but car accidents and stupidity on my part, I thwarted my own future in some ways.
Yeah,
There's
I think
there's
that,
no
and
hope.
it kind of happens to a lot of people. Like, kind of, I mean, I would say even all people. Like, we all have this like picture of what we want our life to be, but a lot of those things, like, they're not out of our control, but a lot of those things are affected by things that are out of our control.
Yeah.
So when, something doesn't pan out, it could lead to like some sort of like almost like a snowball effect.
Hmm.
And then, before you know it, you're you know, like, oh, I want to, by 30, I want to be like married and be starting a family and all this, blah, blah, blah. And then, in the blink of an eye, you're 30 and you're like, working two jobs, like, you know, struggling to get by. And it's like, it kind of like if you're able to like stop and think about it, it could really like damage people to the point where like they consider themselves failures.
I did, man.
And it's like one of those things where what what would, like, looking at that situation, like what would alleviate that? What would alleviate not being in the ideal situation you thought you would be? And to
Money.
me, when you kind of like ask me, or if I was to tell you, it's um not specifically money, although it could like really help, but just like the environment and the lifestyle you're able to have in the situation you're in.
Yeah.
So like, okay, I wanted to be, I wanted to be like a doctor or something. Obviously, maybe if things didn't work out, oh, I didn't get to be a doctor. I get to work at um, I don't know, I'm a manager at like a department store or whatever. And if you're a manager at a department store, but you're living paycheck to paycheck, yeah, that's gonna suck. Like, you're gonna see yourself as a failure. But
Right.
it's like, hey, I want to be a doctor, but this happened and that happened, so I'm a manager at a department store, but I still live comfortably, and I'm semi happy and decent, like, in life. Like, I have no complaints.
Yeah.
Then that job as a manager at a department store doesn't, that lifestyle doesn't seem so bad. That outcome doesn't seem like, hey, I didn't become a doctor, but I'm happy. So I think a lot of people are in that situation, except they don't have that uh, feeling of, hey, I didn't do what I wanted to do, but um, it's still like my life still sucks.
Yeah. I, I don't. I want actually. when I was 28, I decided to go to med school, and I got ready, and then I got divorced, and I put med school on hold. And then when I got ready to do it again, I had a car accident. So I think that a lot of things are happening to everybody is you have to accept and make the best of what you have. And that seems so cliche, dude. After living, nearly 60 years of trying to make the best of a bad situation, it gets old. And the way you talk about, it is money, because to me, it's money because I was saving money and I can't anymore. And now I'm putting as much money in the back as is spilling over the spillway. And sooner or later, I can't put that money in the back anymore because I'm old and I can't work as much. Then you have to start cutting the front end off of it. And you're trying to keep this balance of capitalism so you don't fall through the cracks and end up doing, the people we take care of every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a it's this rat race to keep the bowl as full as you can for as long as you can, and then sooner or later you're just pulling out of the bowl and you can't put in any more. And human nature is me. Like right now, I can continue to do that, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I'm headed for disaster here. But there's nothing, literally nothing I can do about it. So I may as well live as good as I can right now. Instead of living a half life for the rest of my life, I'll live as much as I can, and then I'll take care of that back end somehow. That's the way we all think as Americans. We're
Yeah, 'cause
we're
I
having
mean,
fun right now.
like for things to go, like for things in your life to go ideally as you want them to, like it doesn't just take like determination and like hard work, you know. It also takes like a lot of luck.
Yes, sir.
And people don't like recognize that, and they don't acknowledge that. So when people that, hey, I wanted to become a lawyer and I became a lawyer, and then they see, their, you know, like 10 years later, they see like one of their high school classmates, being like their waiter or something.
Yeah,
And, a lot of people have that mentality of like, oh, they didn't work harder, or like they didn't work hard like me, or they didn't work hard enough because I was able to achieve what I wanted to.
yeah. You just got lucky,
And
basically.
yeah, and I try to explain that to a lot of people without making it sound like, because when you try to like talk to people in that way or try to um, explain that to people, they kind of come away as you trying to tell them like, oh, you didn't deserve anything you got, you just got lucky. And that's not what
Right.
I'm trying to say at all. I'm just saying that luck is also involved in people's lives, like you
Oh,
said, like, you were trying to go to law school and you got in a car accident. Like, you don't
right.
plan for those things. People don't plan for those. People aren't like, oh, I was smart enough to not get in a car accident. I worked hard enough to not get in a car accident. Like, that's not a thing. And people don't really
Sorry,
like,
man. That's fucking funny. That's fucking funny. I worked really hard so I didn't have an accident. You what?
yeah. So it's like people don't. It's almost like a privilege. People don't like talking about their privileges because it kind of, they think it undermines like their achievements,
Right.
and that's not what it's doing at all. It's just like when you can acknowledge your privileges, you're able to like see the fact that, hey, there are things out of your control that may have hurt you or helped you like to get wherever you are, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's okay. uh but once you acknowledge them, you're able to see that maybe not everybody had those same privileges. And once you're able to see that and acknowledge that, you're able to be more compassionate for people and be more uh, willing to, do things like, hey, they proposed this bill to help, to like increase food stamps or whatever, or and it's like, well, I never needed food stamps, but you're able to acknowledge that, like, not everybody was raised in the same situation as you. So instead of having that mentality of like, no, I don't want to help these people, like they just need to work hard. You're The way you look at that is, hey, these people, if they need food stamps, that means they're like down on their luck.
Right.
So why not try to prop them up? So it's the same exact thing. Like you're seeing the same exact, bill or whatever, but it's just your mentality and your perspective of looking at it that changes.
Yeah.
So I think that's what
I,
we need to do.
we need you're as we sit here and talk, man, and where do we start? That's the thing we need to start with, Lalo, is we need to change the way we look at everything. We need to open up our eyes to the fact that successful people and unsuccessful people are the same. We're all the same. We're all the same thing, man. Some people have luck, some don't. Some people win the lottery, some don't. You can be, I try to tell people you could be the best at what you do. You can have a bad fucking morning and go to a job interview and completely blow that job interview and change your entire life because you had a bad morning. Like,
Yeah.
it's that simple. I took my kids to the zoo, changed my whole fucking life, man. And not in some minor little way. I went to the zoo that morning and ended up in the hospital that night. And I try to tell people, you're just in this crapshoot, man. And other people around you are making decisions that have nothing to do with you, that are going to fucking destroy you, or maybe elevate you to the point where you're famous, you're rich, you don't know. So it is you. To a point. Go get your education, go do what you need to do, and hope you get lucky. And it's not a thing where I'm saying there is no hope. But like you said, people need to it's all about perspective, man. If we can look at other people instead of blaming them and accept their circumstances, and maybe we can help more people that way instead of blaming the homeless man or the homeless family or the homeless woman or the homeless fucking dog. Instead of blaming them, if it's your fault you're homeless, let's look at it a different way and say, let's get you out of this, man.
Yeah, because I understand that it's very hard to see other perspectives when all you know is your own perspective.
Yeah.
But I think that's what we need to do is be able to see other people's perspectives. And once we do that, we're able to kind of like be more compassionate and then just see things through a different lens and understand just like the world in general, like better.
Right. Right.
And I think once you do that, you'll start to see like real changes going on. Because
Wow.
once you have that, you like all the issues that you face, they're not bound by like you're able to talk through the issues and get through to some people because they're able to kind of change their perspective on things. I think that's what we lack today, where people are so hard pressed or like set in stone on whatever their stance is, that if you mention anything when it comes to like solving it, no matter what you give them, like they already have their idea set in stone.
Yeah. Well, we learn from a young age to make up our mind and focus and make these choices and then gainsay everything that's offered to us. Nope, it doesn't fit with my worldview. Nope, it doesn't fit with my cultural view. And you just keep saying no, no, no until you solidify this thing that is Republican or liberal or whatever. You get into these mindsets I saw something. I saw something yesterday that really changed my mind, and I'm going to offer something up to here. I think maybe what the world needs, not Americans, but what the world needs is a fresh perspective on what we are and who we are. As I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson, he said there are four elements that make up a human being, and it's oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, and carbon. And he talked about how those things make up humans. That's basically what, when you boil it all down, nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. And he talked about that like it was nothing. And he made that point of like, we're just these beings made out of these four main ingredients. And he said, then if you step back, and the earth is made out of the same thing, and the solar system is made out of the same thing, and the universe is comprised of nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon, and we're all the same fucking thing, Lalo. We're all just this one thing, and we're all together, and we have separated ourselves into these factions based on prejudices and experience and closed-mindedness, and we don't want to look at another culture and say they're okay. We need to say that culture needs to conform to us. You can't come to America, and if you come here and you don't homogenize yourself, then we don't want you. We need to realize that we're all different. We're all the same at the same time. I totally accept everyone around me who doesn't want to hurt me. What's wrong with that? Everybody has ideas about different things. So we are all the same fucking thing, man. And we fight against each other. And I don't know what to say. I think we need to just think about us as a different, from a different perspective, not from capitalism or politics or family or anything. We need to look at it. We're all humans, and we all hurt, and we all have the same, almost same exact experience. So why can't we get along, dude? Seriously, why can't we get along? And I'm not saying it in some Martin Luther King, why can't we all just get along? No, that's not how I'm saying it. I'm saying it like, why aren't we smart enough for like you and I, who see each other on an equal level? We're completely different ages, completely different cultures, completely different backgrounds, and yet you and I respect each other.
Yeah.
So why can't I respect, and why am I judged for respecting an imam in a church, in a temple? Why can't I go to a Hindu temple, and why am I judged for that? It's just this thing. I want to plug into everything that I can and experience everything that I can. And then my mind becomes this thing. It's like when I see someone experiencing a bad time, I don't blame them for it. I'm like, oh, he's having a human experience like I'm having a human experience, and maybe I could give him a hand up, instead of being afraid that he's going to get something that I'm not going to get because he doesn't deserve it.
Yeah.
We all need to eat. We all need to breathe clean air, and we need to eat good food, and we need to have fun, and we need to, fuck who we want to fuck, and choose what we want to choose, how we choose to identify. But we need to stop judging everyone for being trans or gay or black or white or Chinese or what the fuck ever we are. We just need to stop and open up our minds and say, okay, we're all on an equal level here. How can we level this playing field for everybody?
Yeah, I think that's one of those things that's very like easier said than done.
Oh yeah,
That
definitely.
would that requires like a lot of it
Thought.
almost requires like a lot, like a almost like an enlightenment type of scenario, where
Yeah.
you have this huge like rapid change of people's like mentality and way of thinking and
Yeah.
the way they see the world and the way they see their life. And I think it's hard. I would say it's especially hard because the way we've been doing all those things now, uh we've seen them like like they've been this way for a long time, you know. So it's kind of like this is life. This is how life is. We have that mentality and that idea of like we can't change it. That's just how life is, you know.
Hmm.
People keep saying like, oh, you know, like uh you know, like the whole idea of like hey, you know, you grow up, you go to school, you work, you like retire. Like that's just how we've seen life for like decades, you know, centuries.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard for us to wrap our mind around changing any of that, changing any of those aspects because we just see that as the way things are, you know, and we can't
Maybe
really things that just are because that doesn't make sense, you know.
maybe that's why our kids don't make sense to us right now, because they're experiencing uh, a renovation of their thought. They see, okay, you guys have destroyed the fucking planet. Okay, you've destroyed the economy. Everything's out of control, and they look at it from a different point of view. Maybe they don't have enough experience to come up with the ideas to change it right now, but they do have the mindset that it needs to be different. Because
Yeah.
most of the people my age don't have a mindset that it needs to be different. They struggle and scream and fight against it needs to stay the same. And I say, you need to shut up because shit needs to change really, really badly here, because keeping it the same is going to destroy us. So maybe, maybe Andy's right. The 60s were in upheaval because of the sexual revolution and the arrival of racial equality and the end of misogynism, or the beginning of the end of misogynism. And people my age in the 60s didn't want to see young people doing what they were doing. But yeah, and it was bad, dude. They fucking went to music festivals and smoked pot and laid around, didn't get a job, and grew their hair long and did everything they could do to rage against the status quo. Maybe that's what's happening now. I'm not recognizing it because now I'm in the 60-year-old category.
Yeah, I think every generation has that like rebellion phase, you know,
Hmm.
where you like challenge the establishment and like challenge the system in
Yeah.
whatever way that they do it in their era, you know. Like there's like, you know, like the whole like hippie movement, you know, back in the day, like in the early 1900s, you know, like they had the whole like the whole prohibition thing, and you know they had like a whole like establishment of like speakeasy bars and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a rebellion against the establishment, you know. That was, you know, all those things were legal and all those things were wrong. But, you know, if you ask that same person right now, like, hey, remember when, you know, you guys did this? And it's like, oh, that was different, you know.
Yeah, exactly. That's what my dad would say. He would say, "Well, that was completely different." It's like, no, it wasn't. Well, that's cool, man. I I hope what we talked about. Maybe that'll help some people realize. It made me realize. I I hope. I have hope. I do. I can't help it. It just seems to be my nature. I don't. I have hope. I think we can do this. I think that things can change, and it's going to take that radical upheaval of, whatever it takes. But these kids are pretty smart. They really are. They just have a different way of approaching culture.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'm not seeing, because I got too set in my ways somewhere along the line.
Because I mean, there are a lot of like young people that are um, like innovating, you know, in different fields and different aspects that, you know, you wouldn't even think to do like, you know, so many years ago.
Yeah.
And like the way they act and the way they, you know, uh, they in the way they like are able to like provide for themselves and the way they think, the way they innovate. it's very different, and there's a lot of like new thinking going on. So I would never see that as like a bad thing, you know. We kind of just have to see what comes out of it.
We have
If
to
that,
just wait and see.
yeah,
That's cool. We'll try to finish that. At least finish the chapter on how it's called Hollowed Out Schools. Takes about, I think, 17 or 18 minutes to do it, to listen to
you
it.
know what chapter it is?
No, I just know the name of the chapter. It's called Hollowed Out Schools. So let's do it. I'm going to do my best to get these two teachers together. And then I have coming up a therapist too, who wants to talk about the construct of therapy, and maybe I can get more, but I know for certain. So we got some people coming up. It's summertime. People have a little bit of time to come on and vent, as long as they can vent anonymously. That's what I've been told. That's fine with me. You know, I don't need names. I just need the experience that you have. You don't need to identify yourself, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, man. I like what happened. I got fucking enlightened.
That's never a bad.
No, it's never a bad thing. Everybody needs to stop and consider what they think. And especially when those things are counter to what is happening, you need to really look at what's happening and say, okay, is this me that's against this, or is this wrong? And if you take a different way to look at it, you may find that you're wrong, and you can grow from it. Doesn't matter how fucking old you are. Just because I can't get up off the floor as fast as a 20-year-old doesn't mean I'm any worse.
Spirit.
All right, man. Well, have a good week, bro.
You too, man.
Don't work too hard.
I never do.
That's right. It's because you're
I work hard enough to my pay grade.
Is that your decision, or is that your interpretation of your pay grade, or theirs?
My I don't know, philosophy, I guess.
I love it, man.
It's a fine
Because
balance between going like, especially in this line of work, it's a fine balance between like going out of your way because you want to do it, and then like being forced to like go above and beyond your job duties, if that makes sense.
yeah, the 8th graders call it doing too much.
Yeah, so fine line that I think I got down pretty good. So.
Well, because of your generation, when I was your age, it was this panic of how hard could I work to assuage my guilt. And now I'm down to, you know what, I work really hard and I'm doing a good thing, and I'm not going to push myself to the brink of collapse for money. That's not the way this is working anymore. I'm doing a good thing. You're doing a good thing. So as long as we keep doing a good thing, fuck it, we're doing enough, right?
Exactly.
All right. See you next week, man.
Later, man.
Later. You have now experienced the Thoroughly Wrong Project with your podcast hosts, Lalo and Bob. We can now be found on Pandora Radio, Apple Podcasts, Podium Podcast, or by searching The Thoroughly Wrong Project to locate our YouTube channel. You can contact us directly by email at thoroughly-wrong@gmail.com, or just leave a comment on any of our platforms. Until next time, thanks for spending your valuable time with us, and remember, always speak up and never be afraid to be thoroughly wrong.